The fog rolls in heavy across the Appalachian Mountains. It clings to the trees, wrapping the forest in a damp, suffocating silence. Somewhere deep in the woods, a formation of jagged stone juts out from the earth like the bones of something ancient. Locals call it Coffin Rock. They say the name isn't just about the way it looks. It's about what was found there, and what's been heard there ever since. Hikers who pass through the valley describe the same thing. The forest growing too quiet. No birds, no wind, just a stillness that presses against your chest, as if the woods themselves are holding their breath. Some swear that when the fog thickens, voices rise from Coffin Rock. Low murmurs, chanting, and sometimes screams. It always begins the same way. A crunch of leaves when no one is near. A shadow flickering at the edge of vision. And then, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. But Coffin Rock isn't just a place of stories. There are records, fragments of old reports from the 1800s, that speak of bodies found tied to the rock, carved with strange markings. No one ever claimed responsibility. No one ever explained what the symbols meant. And whenever a search party was sent to investigate, fewer and fewer men returned. The locals avoid the place. Children are told to never wander there. Hunters leave offerings of tobacco or food at the edge of the trail, whispering a prayer before moving on. Because even now, generations later, the echoes continue. The fog thickens around the stone, curling in unnatural patterns. Some visitors describe hearing a voice call their name, soft, familiar, as if from someone they love. But when they turn, the woods are empty. Coffin Rock has stood for centuries, an unchanging monument to something the mountains will never release. Those who linger too long find their thoughts shifting, their sense of time slipping. Minutes feel like hours. A path walked 100 times suddenly twists into an unfamiliar direction. And then, the silence breaks. Because Coffin Rock never lets strangers leave without leaving something behind. Something unseen stirs in the mist. But what waits in the trees when the whispers begin? The Appalachian woods have always carried stories. But near Coffin Rock, the whispers are different. They don't fade with the firelight or dissolve with the dawn. They linger. They travel with you. Generations of locals talk about the voices. Some say they're inhuman, speaking in a tongue no one recognizes. Others insist they sound like loved ones, calling out from deep in the forest. A mother swore she heard her dead son's laughter drifting through the branches. A hunter claimed the trees spoke his name in his late father's voice. But the closer you move toward the rock, the louder the whispers become. They overlap, hundreds of voices speaking at once. Some pleading, some warning, and some laughing. There's a pattern in the stories. No one hears the whispers until they're alone. Even if a group hikes together, the voices single people out, isolating them. That's when the fear takes hold. Because once you start listening, it's hard to stop. Old mountain folk claim the voices belong to the restless. Spirits of those who died violently in the wilderness. Some point to Coffin Rock as the anchor, the place where their pain was carved into the land. They say the whispers aren't random. They're lures, a call to step off the trail, a reason to wander deeper until you're too far to find your way back. One story from the 1920s tells of a young couple who vanished while picnicking near the rock. Their belongings were found neatly arranged, untouched, but no trace of them remained. Locals say the man's brother, desperate to understand, camped near the rock alone. On the third night, he stumbled into town raving that he had heard his brother's voice calling from the forest. When rescuers went back with him the next morning, he was gone too. All they found was a torn scrap of his coat snagged on a branch, leading toward the rock. It's never just the voices, though. Sometimes people report figures moving between the trees. Tall shapes, draped in shadows, always just beyond the fog. Too tall to be human, too still to be animal. Those who've seen them say the figures never approach. They only watch, waiting. But if the whispers are warnings, what exactly are they trying to protect people from? The search party that never returned the legend of Coffin Rock isn't only built on whispers. It's built on something far darker, an event that was recorded, then nearly erased. In the mid-1800s, a young girl went missing near Bucketsville. Desperate, the townsfolk organized a search party. 7 men set out into the mountains, lanterns in hand, their voices calling through the fog. They never came back. Days later, another group was sent to find them. What they discovered on Coffin Rock has haunted the region ever since. The 7 men were there, bound together by hands and feet, their bodies arranged in a star-like pattern across the stone. Each was marked with strange carvings cut deep into their flesh. Their eyes were missing. Their chests had been torn open. And yet, there was no blood. Not on the stone. Not on the ground. The rescuers, horrified, fled to town to gather help. But when they returned with others only hours later, the bodies were gone. Every single one. The stone was bare, as if nothing had happened. What unsettled them most wasn't the absence of the dead, it was the silence. The birds had stopped singing. The wind had died. And from somewhere in the woods, faintly carried through the mist, they swore they heard the men's voices still calling. The official reports were vague. Records of the incident were quietly buried. But in Bucketsville, the story survived. Parents whispered it to children as a warning. Stay away from Coffin Rock. Over the decades, others have vanished there. Hunters, hikers, even seasoned woodsmen. Some are found days later, wandering barefoot, clothes torn, their memories blank. They can't explain where they went or what they saw. All they recall is the same thing. Whispers leading them deeper, always toward the rock. One journal entry, recovered from a missing trapper in 1912, contained only a few scrawled words before the ink smeared off the page. The voices are not outside. They're inside now. The rock has no answers, only echoes. And every generation adds more names to its silence. But if the dead were taken, if the 7 men were never truly freed, then what still waits at Coffin Rock when night falls? Modern hikers think the legends are just stories, until the woods remind them otherwise. A group of college students once set up camp near Coffin Rock. They wanted to film a documentary about Appalachian folklore, capturing the place on camera. Locals warned them, but they laughed it off. That night, their fire barely pushed back the fog. The air grew heavy, and the forest fell silent. The first thing they noticed was the smell. Damp earth, rotting leaves, then something stronger, copper, sharp and metallic like blood. One of them swore he heard footsteps pacing just beyond the firelight. Another claimed he saw tall, shadowed figures shifting between the trees. But every time they pointed the camera, there was nothing. Hours passed. The fire sputtered low, and then the whispers began. At first, they were faint. A woman's voice, calling softly, sweetly, as if luring a child home. Then came laughter. Dozens of voices overlapping, circling the camp. The students huddled together, panic setting in. They tried to pack up, but every path they took twisted back toward the rock. Their footage, later found abandoned, shows them running, gasping for breath, voices cracking in fear. The camera shakes as they stumble through the underbrush. But one detail is unmistakable. In every frame, no matter which direction they turn, Coffin Rock looms in the background. The group never came home. Their car remained in the parking lot for weeks, gathering dust. Search teams scoured the woods, but found only scraps, torn fabric, a broken lens, deep gouges in the bark of nearby trees. The students' bodies were never recovered. Some say the rock keeps them, like it kept the search party before. Others believe the whispers led them into a place beyond the forest, somewhere you can't return from. Today, hikers who pass the site at night claim they hear echoes of the students' screams mixed with the wind. A phone buzzing faintly in the distance. The desperate cry of someone yelling, "Help!" before it's swallowed by silence. And if you stand too close to the rock after dark, you might notice something else. Words carved into the stone that weren't there before. New names. Fresh marks. Because Coffin Rock isn't finished. And the night always brings it back to life. Coffin Rock still waits in the mist. The stones haven't moved. The forest still grows around it. And yet, the echoes never stop. Hunters say they've heard children crying near the rock when no children were there. Hikers swear their phones pick up faint recordings, static, than a voice whispering their name. Even seasoned locals, hardened by years in the Appalachians, won't linger there after dusk. What makes the rock so different from any other patch of wilderness? No one knows. Some believe it marks the site of an old ritual, a scar left behind by something that should never have been summoned. Others whisper that the land itself remembers pain, and Coffin Rock is where that memory bleeds through. But one thing is certain, when you stand in the fog, with silence pressing against your ears, you can feel it. The pull, the weight of something watching, waiting, and if you listen too long, you may hear them. The lost voices, the missing, the laughter that doesn't belong. Maybe that's why no one can truly map the trails around it. Paths twist, landmarks shift, and time bends until hours vanish in minutes. Some who escaped say they were only gone an evening, only to return and find days had passed. Coffin Rock doesn't just echo the past. It takes the present. It claims the future. So if you ever find yourself in those mountains and the fog thickens around you, remember the warnings. Don't follow the voices. Don't answer the call. Because Coffin Rock is patient and always wants more. And sometimes the echoes you hear in the trees aren't echoes at all. If this story chilled you, there are more Appalachian horrors waiting. Don't wander off just yet. Check out the next tale on screen. And remember, out here in the mountains, not every legend stays buried.